store. Total today is $1.62.
For a story like this,
Tater Junction, local cafe.
a place called Tater Junction
Great day.
is as good a place to start as any.
Amy, order up.
It's where Frankie Shorty Miller gets his coffee,
Almost every day. It's in my office most of the time.
where his cup of joe comes with a dirty joke or two,
Oh, I ain't gonna tell no dirty ones on TV.
I really believe it happened.
and maybe a tall tale or two along the way.
I've heard 10 different stories. I've heard about the Martian that crashed up here on Aurora Hill and what they did with the bodies and all this stuff.
Because this is Aurora, Texas, 40 minutes north of Fort Worth, where in 1897 the Dallas Morning News wrote about a terrific explosion, a flying saucer colliding with a windmill and a badly disfigured pilot they found who was not an inhabitant of this world. Which explains the historic marker bearing that story at the old Aurora Cemetery and why amid the gravestones of Aurora's founding fathers and mothers,
There's still a huge divide between the believers and the non-believers.
you can find the city administrator sitting on a rock.
I had ordered the placement of this rock here because people wanted to know where he was.
He is the UFO pilot, the one they've since named Ned, the one who early Aurora settlers supposedly offered a good Christian burial on this spot underneath a gnarled tree. Protected by a hive of bees where visitors now use markers to claim the rock and the spot where his earthly resting place supposedly came to be.
I think it's a fun story. I'm, not entirely sure it happened.
But after a short walk
This has been one of the biggest cover-ups ever.
to Aurora's tiny city hall,
This is the smoking gun.
a believer and a Ned mannequin are awfully easy to find.
Yeah, I think it happened.
Jim Mars is an author, conspiracy theorist, and newspaper reporter who covered this story decades ago when he and a friend
We found readings.
found evidence of metal fragments at the grave, but then the next day they were gone. And someone took Ned's original headstone, too.
He said, I think it was the government. And I said, I think you're right. I think they've been aware of what really happened at Aurora and have been keeping tabs on it.
But keeping tabs on the story from his outpost at Tater Junction,
How was that called?
Frankie Miller had a suggestion.
Oh, yeah.
Find the UFO and the shattered metal pieces the locals decided
That would have been a hard one to get around.
to bury in a farmer's well.
He might be in that old well up there if you can find that old well.
So, we found it.
It's been a story forever.
It's Jackie Stone's well. Is this the old well, this hole here?
This is it right here.
His granddad's well. He always told him the story.
It's the best story you'll ever hear.
Even told him these are the trees near the old windmill where Ned and his disintegrating flying saucer met their fate.
That one right there seems like it's never got any bigger.
Yeah. Well, spaceship will do that to us.
There you go. It's a damn good story and it's not going away.
Whatever happened here 120 years ago, or at least the story that started here 120 years ago, helped put Aurora, Texas on the map. But now, as they re-embrace the legend of Ned these 120 years later, they're hoping their spot on the map can finally get a little bit bigger. They're building a stainless steel monument, complete with a windmill at the entrance to town. The UFO is the Aurora City logo. They're even putting it on coffee cups, hoping Ned, 120 years later,
This has been in plans for about 3 years.
can bring a few more tourist dollars to town.
She believes.
Tips a Tater Junction waitress would be happy to see.
We have to have one claim to fame. Everybody does. I want to believe it. I really do.
So at this point, you're asking yourself, why not just dig up the alien grave and see if Ned is still inside?
Let the alien lie where he may.
Because the city administrator says they can't.
There's a law in the state of Texas that says you have to notify the next of kin before you exhume remains. And obviously, we do not know any other Neds.
So whether they ever dig or not, the legend lives 120 years and counting.
Believer is not really quite exact. I believe in a God. I know there are UFOs.
There's a good possibility, real good possibility.
A real good possibility, at least, that the legend of Ned
Have you seen where the alien's buried?
will likely outlive us all. In Aurora, Texas, Kevin Reece, Channel 8 News.